Are you ready to take your business to the next level and make the money you want so that you can create the impact you desire? Then you're in the right place. It's possible to run a successful business built around your life. Get ready for a little bit of tough love and a whole lot of strategy to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. If you're ready to get out of your own way and step into the role of CEO, then let's go. I'm Amy Traw, and this is the Motivated CEO Podcast. The topic of launching for many entrepreneurs can feel completely overwhelming. I'll admit, I was there once. I used to hate launching. And when I saw today's guest, Dolly DeLong, talking all about strategically launching, I'm like, yes, we need this, because when you have those systems and workflows in place, oh my gosh, this whole heavy process of launching, it gets so much easier, I swear. Dolly is a workflow educator and launch strategist, and she empowers overwhelmed small business owners to launch with clarity, confidence, and strategy by streamlining their systems and workflows, ensuring sustainable success beyond their launches. Who doesn't love that? I am so excited to have you here with me, Dolly, to dive into this topic. So thanks for taking the time to be here today.
Of course. And again, like I was saying before we hit record, it is an honor to be here, and I'm very honored you reached out to me. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about the whole topic of launching. Why do
Yeah.
you think for so many entrepreneurs, it feels so heavy? It feels so exhausting. It feels like after we're done with the launch, like, oh my gosh, I just need to go into troll mode for a week and hibernate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like very layered. And like I think through this a lot since this is my world. And it's something that sometimes I struggle with too, and it's imposter syndrome. And I will explain why I said imposter syndrome. It's because we as small business owners, when we look at launching, we instantly, or at least I do, instantly start comparing ourselves to the bigger companies, to the big box companies, or at least the celebrity entrepreneurs who have the bigger teams, and we compare ourselves, and then we instantly either like go down the rabbit trail of like we feel like failures instantly, or we just start telling ourselves like we can't do that, I can't be at that level. I like it's a myriad of things, and then also the comparison game. It just is so damaging. And I want to encourage small business owners. Like, first of all, I'm coming at this conversation as a small business owner myself. I do not have a giant team working for me. I'm not saying that as a badge. I'm not at all. If I had the overhead, I would be hiring people out. But at this moment, it's just me and 2 or 3 contractors, and that's it. But yet I have seen the power of systems and workflows and using them strategically to launch. And I want to lay a disclaimer here. I'm not saying I launch 6, 7, 8-figure launches. Like these are very still like launches that impact my overhead in a positive way, but it's under 6 figures, y'all. And I'm okay. Like I'm still a successful business owner. So I am talking at this at an angle of like a smaller business still should look at launching, and still the only word I can think of is partake in launching. Like still like put your like get your gear head on and like still like move ahead with launching. And okay, where was it? So sorry. I like lost my train of thought, but it's coming back. It's coming back.
Okay, the power of editing.
Oh, thank
We
you
will
so
edit
much.
this part out.
Thank God for editing. I'm so sorry. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
you're
But
good.
like one of the ways we get in our own way is we start comparing. Okay, so that's like very obvious. Another reason we overcomplicate launching is because we we're not really good as business owners, especially as solo business owners, and then especially as creative minded business owners. We're not really good at planning ahead and like doing a promotional campaign, like promoting ourselves consistently, because a lot of small business owners fall into this trap. And I don't want to make a blanket statement. So don't come at me, listeners, if you're like, I don't fit that cat. I'm just saying, I've just noticed a trend that in the creative space, especially like, oh, if I'm not inspired, I'm not going to do that. I have to be inspired in the moment and then I will promote it. And I just, I'm like, okay, that's great. There's a good time and place to be inspired and to work based off inspiration. But if you're a small business owner and you want to build a sustainable business, I'm not talking about a 6, 7, 8 figure business. I'm talking about what would be needed to sustain you, to pay your overhead costs, to pay yourself, then you need to have like merge launching and think of it as merging with a marketing and promotional period. So know what your services are, know what your money makers are, and then see how you can like make a marketing plan for yourself for looking at the next year ahead is overwhelming, then look at the next 6 months ahead. Like how many clients are you going to need to like bring in every month? How many products are you going to need to sell in order to make your overhead like worth it for yourself, or financial goals for yourself? And then essentially it's, for me, I look at it as working backwards and then knowing, okay, this is how much I'm going to need to make every month. Okay, this is what I'm going to need to do to promote myself. This is what, like, essentially I look at launching in phases, and one of the phases is working backwards to better promote myself. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, everything you're saying, like, preach it, sister. Seriously. Because yes, it is so easy in the online space, especially, to start comparing ourselves.
Yes.
And that's where it makes it really, really, really tempting to want to give up, because we're seeing all of these massive wins in the online space. Like, oh, I just had $100,000 launch. Okay,
Mhm.
well, great. That's awesome for you. But what's the context behind it? Because
Yes.
if this is only your first or second or third time launching a product or a service, that's not realistic to have that expectation, when you're right. Many, many times they have these massive teams in place. They are
Yes.
pumping tons of money into different paid advertising channels. And it is possible to achieve those results, but your overhead is going to be so much higher, and you have to consider the profit margin. And
Yes.
so often these wins that we're seeing online are being taken out of context.
Yes.
And then we start to compare our chapter 1 with their chapter 20. But what we
Mhm.
forget is they've launched this thing 20 times before and have continued to refine it, test it, grow it, do more things. So as business owners, having that awareness of, the reality is most business owners aren't making 6 figures right out of the gate. That's not reality. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that. But a lot of times it comes back to really having that clear definition of, what does success look like to you?
Yeah.
Because yes, you can be pulling in tons of money, but if your overhead, you're spending all of that money that you've brought in, what's the point? What is the point to it? So thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for just lifting that burden off of so many entrepreneurs that are listening to this episode, their shoulders, because it is so easy to get sucked into that cycle and think that we're less than if we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And it's okay if you don't want to be there too. I think that's important to know, that you don't
Oh,
need a huge team. You don't need to be making 6 figures a year to be successful. It's about what you want.
yeah. I love that. Preach it. Yeah. Snaps to you for saying that. Yeah.
We could go
I,
on all day with
yeah,
this, right?
exactly. I will say, like, several systems that come to mind that I really believe business owners foundationally should know are like having a good, clear financial foundation for their business. So, knowing what your like basic business operation costs are, yearly, and monthly and quarterly, like knowing what you're spending, knowing what it costs to run your business. That's so, so, so important. Like you don't
Yes.
have to hire out a bookkeeper to know like what your costs are. If you are telling yourself that excuse, like, well, I can't afford a bookkeeper and I can't afford like that, you can build a spreadsheet out, like use a Google spreadsheet and like compare expenses and like what income, okay? But so building out a good financial awareness, like system number one to know for yourself. System number two is knowing like what all of your money makers are. I know I said this before, but knowing like when, like if you are a service-based business owner, I'll use myself as an example because I have two sides of my business. I don't know if you know this, but I am a photographer, and I also am a systems and workflow educator. Those are two very different types of businesses, and it took me a while to figure out. This is so like I can't believe I'm admitting this, and people might be like, "Wow, she's dumb," but I was like, "Oh, it will be the same type of marketing strategy and it will be the same type of everything for both sides of my business." No, it's so different. Like, so for my photography side of my business, I have to market it very differently. I have to look at my overhead very differently. I have to know my numbers very differently versus the systems, workflow, launching education side of my business. So, two very different models. And when I started getting my head wrapped around that, I was like, oh, okay. I now need to know, like, I now know, like, okay, this is the amount I can make from photography. And I know predictably, based off of data in the past, this is when my highest revenue months will be for photography, and I can compare it to with education systems, workflow education. Okay, these are the months that I will be making like X amount of dollars based off of data, based on my launching periods. And I have more like a more definite reoccurring, like I know I can now consistently pay myself. I now know what the overhead of both businesses, like it came down to me finally doing the work, the unsexy work of knowing my numbers, knowing what it costs to run the numbers, that's a system, and then knowing how I make money, because it sounds so simple, but yet we overcomplicate it so much. And I don't know if you have ever overcomplicated something like that, but I certainly have.
You were talking to the master overcomplicator right here. The story of my life. But I'm loving everything that you're saying. And it goes back to something you said a little bit ago. It's, you know, so often in the online space, we're like, oh, just go with your intuition, go
Hmm.
with the flow. Okay, yeah, that's great. But at
Yes.
the end of the day, you're running a business.
Hmm.
If you want to achieve business like results, you have to treat your business like a business. So it
Yes.
involves doing exactly as you said, the not so glamorous side, knowing your numbers, knowing your data, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Dolly, I still use Google Sheets. I have used Google Sheets to build and scale every one of my businesses
Yes.
because it works for me. I know exactly what's happening when. I know what the overhead is. I know what my profit margins are. And that's what we need to be taking the time to do as entrepreneurs, because this is truly the key to success, is looking at the big picture, zooming out.
Yes.
And that's what the data allows us to do in order to make informed decisions. And it allows us to then fill those gaps in, for example, with with your photography business and then running the systems and workflow. Okay, you can see where do I dip naturally? How can I use the other to offset it? And that's what you can do in your business too. So I would
Yeah.
love to shift gears a little bit and go into the launch itself and really
Yeah.
getting strategic about it, because oftentimes in the online space, we get an idea and we're like, okay, I'm going to put an offer out there and people are going to buy it. That's what we're made to think. But the reality is there's some planning that really needs to happen before you even announce to the world that you have something for sale. So
Yeah.
what does your launch runway look like? What are you doing ahead of time before you're even going live with the launch?
Yeah, so way ahead of time, like going back to those foundations of knowing what my services are, knowing when I'm making my money, I then that helps me lay out a forecast for the next year. So right now, while we're recording this, it's November. I'm already planning ahead for 2025, like my whole marketing calendar. Now, is it set in stone? No, it will be very flexible, but I do know based off of data again that I am going to be generating a lot of feast. It's going to be like a lot of income from August to November because of my photography side of my business. All right. But then the lower months are normally January to March and then December. And so I know I'm going to need either to, I'm not going to be launching because that would kind of be like, oh, I need to like make money and it will be it will feel desperate. It will feel, I hate using this word, but it's true, inauthentic. Like people will feel that. So I then know, okay, when when can I actually serve my one-to-one clients? I'm getting to your question, I promise, but this is I'm taking the long road. I promise. I'm getting there, getting to the answer. So then I know during my slower months, I can definitely offer more one-to-one launch support to my one-to-one clients. So I am therefore, then I look at my calendar after like I fill in with my paid clients with my photography work. Okay, these are the best times that I am going to relaunch a program or relaunch a digital product. Like a lot of what I do is launch digital product or group programs. And again, I I have to do the groundwork of, laying out my marketing calendar. So I set that up. That was long-winded. I'm so sorry, Amy. Okay. All right. So how I do that after I do all of that work, I then look at, okay, when do I want my open cart? Because I like working backwards. So let's say I want to launch something in March of 2025. This is just an example. I am not just going to focus in on the open cart stage, as sexy as that is, because that's the money making stage. That's the exciting stage. I am working backwards by 8 to 10 weeks. The 8 to 10 weeks, I'm looking at those are going to be my pre launch or promotional, like the pre launch of going into my cart open phase because I want to be not only drawing in more interest to what I'm leading to, I also want to be very mindful of growing out my email list during this time. I also want to be very mindful of still serving my clients at this time. And then before that, I'm going to also be looking at what can I do to better plan out for the 8 to 10 weeks leading up. I'm looking at the even upwards of 4 weeks before that. And that is when I'm sitting down and I'm mapping out the pre-launch and all the content and the like my email marketing strategy, my content marketing strategy, my podcasting and YouTube strategy, and how that all plays together. Because I do not think it's wise to create content on the fly every week of your pre-launch. That's why I'm a big proponent of 4 phases of launching. The pre-launch phase, the like that's like where you're planning everything out for the pre-launch. And then the launch phase, this is the third phase, is your open cart. And then the post-launch is the fourth phase. I hope you are picking up what I'm putting down because I am just like word vomiting all over you.
But I love what you're putting down. Seriously, because this is important. There's so much planning and strategy that goes into it. And something that I found too that really helps me is I just map it all out anytime I'm
Mhm.
doing a new launch. And I'm at the point now I launch the same things over and over again. And I plan it around my life because
Yes.
I do not run my group program at all, my hybrid program during the summer months when my
Oh
kids are
no.
home. It's
Yeah.
exhausting. Like
Yes.
if they're home with me, yes, my kids are getting older, but still, there's some days it's like a war zone. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, I don't have the mental capacity for it. So
Yeah.
summertime, I'm very intentional, but you have to have that zoomed out approach, exactly as you're saying, so that you can create this successful launch. It all comes back to that reverse engineering,
Mhm.
knowing, okay, well, when is that ideal open cart rate? And then again, how can we work backwards in the pre-launch? And I think a lot of people forget about that because it's like, oh, I'm just going to put it out. I want to make money. Selling's fun. Like, and we forget that people buy from people that now sales cycles are longer, and we just have to adjust to that. We have
Yeah.
to nurture those relationships. We have to work on building our lists. Those are the things that are going to help improve our conversions. We can't just show up on Instagram one day and be like, buy my thing. It doesn't work that way. That'd be cool if
It
it did,
doesn't.
but I've
Oh,
never
I
had it work.
wish. Oh yeah, neither have I. And like it's very rare to let that be the case for someone. And I use this example, I feel like on all podcast interviews and like if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I've heard you say this before, I'm sorry. Sue me, somebody. I'm sorry. But I'm glad you have kids. So whenever, I don't know if you have a Costco membership or a Sam's Club membership, but we're a big Costco family here. With the DeLongs, we love Costco. So every like every time I take my sons to Costco, they're already as a big box company, they are 2 or 3 months ahead of the game, like they're helping you paint a picture of what to imagine your life as, like when you step into their store, like they're helping you think ahead. So, example, back to school shopping, when I took my son back to school shopping or prepare for kindergarten this year, it was mid-July. And I was thinking when we were going to walk into Costco, we're going to see summer stuff. We're going to be reminded of all the cool summer things to do. No, I was instantly reminded about you need to start planning for Halloween and you need to buy everything now because like it's in your face. And do we get mad at the big box companies that do that? Like they're unapologetic about it because they have a company to run. They have overhead. They're wanting to market well so that you can buy everything out. And they do that so well. So why can't we as small business owners act like we're a big box? Like we have to have the big box company mentality and help paint a picture ahead of time so that our clients can be like, "Oh, I need," you're not manipulating them. You're just like helping them see like you're going to either need this or you can refer this to somebody who will need this in a couple of months. And that's what you do during your pre-launch stage. Like you're essentially like showcasing your expertise, you're showcasing testimonials, you're showcasing frequently asked questions, you're showcasing their objections before you actually tell them this is what I have to sell. So if you're wondering, if you're listening in, how do I create 8 weeks of content without telling them, hey, I'm going to sell this? Like you are painting a visual picture leading up to your actual launch. And that's kind of like what the big box companies do in July for Halloween. And now, like, literally Halloween was last week and now they're not thinking about Thanksgiving. They're showcasing Christmas. So now all my boys talk about is Christmas. I'm like, great. Like now I need to worry about that. But
Yeah.
we need to have that. If I believe with our marketing, we should have that big box company mentality of really like helping cast a vision for the next quarter, for the next 2 quarters, very intentionally.
Yeah, it is all about being intentional, about taking
Yeah.
that pause to really assess what is that bigger picture, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the day to day. It's easy
Mhm.
to be like, I don't feel inspired today. Like you said
Mhm.
earlier, it happens. But, when you're in your 9 to 5, you can't just go, I'm just not feeling it today. I'm not going to show up and do any work. No, you have to keep putting in the work to get the results. And that's what launching comes down to. It's just being proactive and planning. And a lot of this, once you've done it, once, twice, three times. You keep documenting as you go and you make those
Yes.
small little tweaks. Now, are there any systems that you like to use on the back end? Because I use Google Sheets a lot. I use
Yes.
Monday when I'm collaborating with different people. What do you like to use? What's in your toolbox?
Yeah, so definitely Trello is my go-to project management tool of choice. First of all, it's free. For the first 10 boards are free. So if you are a small business owner listening in and you're wanting to get started with a project management tool, try Trello. I think ClickUp offers a free base as well. Asana is free, but Trello is my go-to because I can make the board visually really pretty and then hand it off to my clients so that they know like every phase broken down, and I love it. And I always start like what you were saying, it's really important to document everything because you think that you're going to remember every single emotion and everything that happened during this past launch. You're not going to. Um, you like it's so important to have that documentation so that you can look back and see, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what could I tweak, what should I repeat? And if you're wondering, will people notice? No, nobody's gonna notice. Like, except your super fans, and your super fans will like cheer you on. They're not gonna question you and be like, well, Amy, you already did that.
Yep.
How dare you try that again? They're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. She's doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Nobody's paying attention.
nobody's paying attention. And I encourage business owners to start documenting their processes through a project management tool. And there's so many different processes within your business. There's a financial process, there's lead gen process, there is a marketing process. So think of this process as your launching process. So what is your launching workflow going to look like? So let's start there. And then another system I strongly encourage you to dive into is, like we hinted at this earlier, we talked about this, but your email marketing process. Like, I am a big proponent of growing out your email list year round and being very mindful of who you're talking to, who you're serving, like how consistent you are. Do I think you should be emailing your list every day? Like, if you want to, go for it. But I think a really good pulse is once a week. That's a good cadence. And then because when you launch, you're going to have to pick up that cadence. I mean, you don't have to, but as a launch strategist, I highly recommend that. And then, and you need your audience to already be used to seeing your name on a weekly basis on the cadence. And if you're like, I don't want to annoy them, I like, again, you're going to have to overcome that mindset, because your name needs to be associated with that area of expertise. You need to be seen as that go-to reference and a trusted resource. And if you're just popping in just to sell, that's going to feel ick. But if you're popping in every week with a cadence with like serve and to help, and like, yes, you can sell too, like it's gonna feel more natural versus just popping in to sell.
Yeah, it takes the ick out of it
Yeah.
because you're serving, you're providing value, and that's what's positioning you as the authority in your space. And you're absolutely right. It's a whole mindset thing
Yes.
about, I don't want to be a bother. I think, yes, you can go overboard. I will not, I always talk about the time that I was looking at my emails. I had bought something from the children's place and I looked at my emails and I'm like, they're emailing me a lot, like
Yes.
a lot. And I looked, I got 10 emails in one day. I was like, okay, you're done, unsubscribe. Like, but that's the thing. People can opt out. If they're
Yes.
annoyed, then they can opt out, and that's okay. It means nothing about you or the value you provide or your worth. But again, it's just information, it's data that you can use. So I think once a week is a perfect cadence to start with because you're right. During launch, then you will have to ramp that up because we do need to remain top of mind. We have to be loud, and it's okay to do that. And so thank you so much for that. Now,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, the one thing I want to talk about is you talked about the post launch. And I think
Yeah.
this is the most forgotten, yet one of the most crucial parts to the launch. And you alluded to some of the things that you do, but I would love for you to dive in a little bit deeper as to what does your post launch process look like? Because it's a gold mine of information that
Yeah.
often we're just leaving on the table.
Oh, yeah, we're leaving on the table. Sometimes we're so exhausted after launching emotionally, sometimes even physically, because we've been on for, depending upon how long our cart opened, let's say it was like 8 days. We're on for 8 days on social media and physically, and like our body is just now crashing, and we're like, I don't
Yeah.
even want to think about anything. And even if it was a good launch versus like a not so, not, I'm saying this in quotes, didn't go as successful. But this is the post launch is something that so many business owners neglect. And it's something I'm guilty of in the past because I've been like so emotionally drained that I'm like, I don't even want to face, like, I don't want to face any of these questions. So I, I and it's different for Black Friday too. I will say Black Friday's coming up, and I sent out a post-launch document to my clients and to my students, and I'm like, this will take you 10 minutes to do after your Black Friday sale. That's it. So I'll go through them really fast. So for a Black Friday launch, for example, I encourage if you to look through all of the emails that you sent out, like even like your purposeful pre-launch emails that were Black Friday intended. Go through them, see what the click-through rate was, see what your open rate was, see if like your unsubscribe rate was, see what your subject lines are, and like map it out in a spreadsheet, super free. It's free 99 right there. This will take you literally 10 to 15 minutes tops. After you see all that, then you can go down a list of questions like, what was my number one opened email for the Black Friday, like this Black Friday promotional period? It might have been due to the subject line, so that you're putting on your investigative, like you're getting out your magnifying glass and you're really taking a look. Okay, this timing worked really well, or this subject line worked very well, or this email was very popular. File that away for 2024, and then that way when you start making your promotional period for Black Friday for next year, you can like look back and say, okay, this didn't work, but this worked, and I'm going to retweak it. Anyways, another thing is, what day did people buy the most? Write that down. Did you make your good, better, and best goal? Like which goal did you make? How do you feel? Like how do you feel after all this? Write it all out, and then next year, it will impact the way you show up for your launch. To take it a step further for all of your launches, I would recommend you set up your Google. They always change their name, GA4 tracking. Early on in the pre-launch planning phase on all of the important pages that are involved in like from like lead gen all the way to the cart checkout page, because that's going to tell a story to you. If you don't know how to do it, Google, let's say you have Show It as your website host, how to set up Google Analytics tracking on Show It. It's all there on YouTube. It's just up to you to how you're going to like when you're going to implement it. Implement the data collection early on, because you cannot retroactively collect data. I will say that. So make sure that's set up. So make sure that you're seeing, okay, how many people landed on my landing page versus how many converted over to that lead magnet. And then from that lead magnet, how many people like stayed on my nurture sequence that led into my launch, and what did the like you're literally looking at the client journey from start to finish and all the data, all the pages, and that sounds really overwhelming. So you can just start off with like how many people landed on your sales page, and then how many people bought. What was the conversion rate in that? And then you can make tweaks to your copy. You can make small tweaks to the visuals. You can make small tweaks to like by implementing Hotjar on the back end of your sales page to see like the user experience. Like it's really cool, like to track where people clicked. You can make tweaks to the call to action buttons. But these are like small tweaks that you adjust over time. So that's why a lot of people don't do it, because it takes time. And yeah, this is all like data analysis and feeling analysis, and that's why people just glaze over the post launch, because it's more fun to just go jump into the next shiny object in the next promotional period versus taking a day and like assessing what went well and what didn't go well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what separates a true business from just a side hustle that you're running on a
Yes.
whim. Like, this is how you build a business. You strategically leverage that data. And I think curiosity as a business owner is one of the most undervalued assets that we have. And this data is allowing us to get curious and, like you said, make those small little adjustments. And that's going to help us make our next launch even bigger, because we're finding the gaps, we're identifying, we're able to make those small tweaks in real time.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to lead us to the results that we want. Dolly, I could talk to you about this all day long. You have been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you guys check out the show notes. We have an awesome freebie linked up from Dolly down there, and get into her world. She is just a guru at what she does. So thank you, Dolly, for being here today.
Thank you. And you are also right back at you. All the positive words back at you.
Aw, thank you. All right. Until next time, cheers to making the money you want so you can create the impact you desire. Are you loving what you're hearing? Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode.